Yeah, thank you. Perfect. So we're going to be talking about mental health and depression awareness and going through just some definitions of mental health, et cetera, and some things we can all probably take away from this as action items and just to really increase our confidence in our ability to help ourselves and others. I did want to put this out there, and I'm sorry, I'm turning over to the other screen. If you can see me, I'm just reading off of it. I do want to just sort of give a heads up that the presentation contains discussion of depression. There may be discussion of suicides. If you or someone you know is experiencing suicidal thoughts or is in crisis, please reach out to the 988 Lifeline, which provides 24/7 free confidential support for people in distress. So, and please take I know this is a sensitive topic and it can bring up some different kinds of feelings. So please take the time that you need. So here is a little about me. I'm the Director of Education at Erika's Lighthouse. We are a nonprofit organization that has partnered with SADD for a few years now, doing work like this, different trainings, working with clubs directly, and just trying to provide good mental health education. There's a course on your MySADD portal that you can take to learn more about how to be a mental health leader, et cetera. Like I said, I'm in the Chicago area. I have a 15-year-old son who's a huge golfer who's staring at me right now. I can feel it. So he is a freshman in high school. I was introduced to health education really after college when I did a two-year volunteer work with AmeriCorps, and I was working at a city county health department in their health education sort of department. So I was introduced to this field that I had no idea existed, and went back to grad school for that. And next week, my son and I are going to Amsterdam for spring break. So we are getting really excited for that. We're going to talk a little about the current status of youth mental health. What is mental health? What makes it difficult to talk about this sometimes? We're going to talk about some of the signs and symptoms of depression, especially in teens. And then we're going to, talk about what can we do. We always want to leave these kind of conversations with action steps and not just becoming aware, but what can we do to help ourselves and a friend? So I wanted to show you this. This is a graph that is from the Centers for Disease Control, and it tells us a little about youth mental health, and it's the latest data is from 2023, so it's pretty current when it comes to data. If you take a look, you can see the data from 2013 all the way to 2023. You can also see the last, the second to last column is trend, and the red stop sign, the red octagon, is sort of going in the wrong direction. That's what it means. The yellow is sort of staying stable, and green means going in the correct direction. So let's look at the top line. This is for high school students. Okay, so a lot of high school students across the country took surveys high schools are part of this national survey, and the percentage of high school students who have experienced persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness was 4 out of 10 in 2023. In 2021, it was 42%, 2023, 40%. So that's a good change, but it's still pretty high. Percentage of high school students who have experienced poor mental health, about 30%. Who have seriously considered attempting suicide, 2 in 10, made a suicide plan, 16%, attempted suicide, 9. So the numbers are pretty scary and pretty staggering, and we all have a responsibility to try to do something about this to get these numbers in the right direction, whether it's just learning like you are sitting here today doing and building the confidence to be able to recognize signs and symptoms and to notice your friends, your peers, if something's going on, or to just ask someone how they are and, hey, do you need someone to talk to? Or can I go to the counselor with you? Would you like some help? Things like that. That's really going to help turn these numbers around. When you break up the sort of the poor mental health stats, someone can everyone make sure they're muted? We're just hearing some static. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Nathaniel. When it comes to poor mental health or persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness, when we break it down between male and female and the different races and ethnicities, you can see it's pretty high when we look at female compared to male. When we look at those who identify as LGBTQ, 65%. When we look at different races, same with poor mental health, the numbers are pretty staggering. So what is mental health? Well, mental health includes our feelings, thinking, emotions, moods. It affects how we think, how we feel, how we act. It's really important for a healthy, happy, and productive life. So we hear about physical health all the time, and we think about, taking care of our body, brushing our teeth, washing our hands, eating right, which is all very, very important. But just as important is taking care of our mental health. So everyone has mental health. Everyone deserves good mental health. And that's what we talk a lot about at Erika's Lighthouse. And we sort of take a really hopeful approach that even if you're struggling, even if you're experiencing depression or other mental health struggles, that there is hope and you deserve good mental health and there's something that can be done. So, excuse me, I wanted to show you this video. I hope the sound will go across. This is a video. It's 5 minutes, so excuse me, but it's really cute. It's a video that we use in one of our classroom programs. So a lot of teachers will use our materials to teach about mental health in schools. And this is a 5-minute animated video about two friends, Sasha and Andre, as they go about their day talking about their mental health. And they talk about mental health in a way that a lot of people can understand. They talk about it with different types of feelings, everyday feelings and overwhelming feelings. Everyday feelings are feelings that we all have. We all get angry sometimes. We all get sad. We all are happy sometimes, or we're proud. And those feelings come and go. We also sometimes have overwhelming feelings, and those feelings stick around for a little while, and they don't always go away with coping strategies. So you're going to hear these friends, hopefully, talk about this, and as they go through their day, and Andre has some overwhelming feelings that don't seem to be going away. So we'll see what happens here.
You can't tell how someone feels by just looking at them, or what they share online with the outside world. Our lives may look perfect, even if in reality they aren't. I'm always worrying about doing well in school, and with tests coming up, I'm not sure how much longer I can cope. My thoughts swarm around my head, sometimes keeping me up all night. Some days it's just all too much, and I feel lost in space. When I did badly on one of my tests, I just about kept it together until I got home. Then I broke down crying in front of my mom. She listened for a bit, and then she told me that just like physical health, we all have mental health. It's our feelings, our thinking, our emotions, and our moods. She then said that feeling down, angry, and stressed is a normal part of life, just like it's normal to feel happy, confident, and carefree sometimes. We all have positive and negative emotions that come and go based on what's happening around us. These are everyday feelings. Good mental health also means experiencing negative emotions. It's not always about being happy. Mom can relate to the feeling of stress. When Mom suggested I take a break from everything and do something I enjoy, I actually took her advice. So I made myself a hot chocolate, snuggled up in a blanket, and watched a movie. And you know what? Afterwards, I felt so much better. Mom should take her own advice.
Most of us only ever share the good things. We don't like to share how we really feel. Every morning when I wake up, negative thoughts stream through my head. Getting out of bed and pretending I'm okay takes all the energy I have. As the day goes on, the negative thoughts turn from a stream into a river. Water rushes through my head so loudly it's hard to concentrate in class. And some days it's so bad it feels like a waterfall that's trying to pull me over the edge. Everything is so overwhelming. I didn't think my friends would understand if I told them how down I was feeling. But when Sasha opened up to me about how stressed she was feeling, I told her. I wasn't sure how to bring up how I've been feeling, so I started by saying that I didn't feel like myself. Just her listening made me feel like she understood. She told me some things that had helped her, so I tried them too, but it didn't make much of a difference. Even when I tried to be around my friends, I felt alone. The things I used to enjoy weren't fun anymore.
I was really worried about Andre and not sure what to do. He was quiet and wasn't hanging out with us like he used to. So I asked our teacher for some advice. He suggested that I get Andre to speak to him since his negative feelings weren't going away.
I didn't want to speak to an adult, but I also didn't want to keep feeling so down. So I went. He said that sometimes we have overwhelming feelings that can be more intense than our everyday feelings. These feelings hang around for a long time and change the way we feel, think, and behave. They can stop us from doing what we want to in life. That's what I was going through. He also said that if we're physically unwell, we let people know. We ask for help. It should be no different with mental health. Sometimes our overwhelming feelings are brought on because of things in our life. Sometimes they happen for no reason at all. After hearing this, I felt much less alone, and it felt good to talk. Scientists have found exercise can help when you're feeling low. So, my teacher encouraged me to sign up to the school soccer team, which Sasha was already in. I still have days when the river is there, but now I'm beginning to understand my mental health. I'm coping with my emotions and seeing a mental health professional. My teacher reminded me that my friends, my family, teachers, and lots of others at school are there to help just as much as he is. I had no idea that people around me could be so understanding, and while it's not always easy to talk about my mental health, the person I'm talking to might be able to help. If you don't feel like talking, that's fine. You could try writing, sports, reading, art, music, playing with your pet, whatever makes you feel better.
If you're the person someone talks to when they're struggling, just listen with no pressure or judgment. You don't have to have an answer. If you feel unsure about anything, you can speak to a trusted adult. Talking about mental health doesn't have to be difficult. It's something we all need to take care of, just like our bodies.
So I hope, what'd you guys think? Good? Yeah. It's a cute video, like right now we use it in our upper elementary classroom programs that we offer, but you can see it's really actually quite good for adults and families. Your club, if those of you who have a SADD club, this is a great thing to show to the members, to adults, like I said, or share at home too. So it talked a little about, those everyday feelings and overwhelming feelings and what good mental health is. We know good mental health really helps us to cope with the natural or normal stresses of life, helps you function productively, form and maintain friendships and positive relationships with others, helps you set goals, helps you feel, express, and manage a range of positive and negative emotions, and helps you contribute to the community. So what gets in the way of mental health? We all know, if I didn't even put this answer up, I think many of you would say stress or anxiety or all the things I have to do, my responsibilities, school, work, etc. But really stress, and stress is not all bad, right? Some stress can be positive. It can help you accomplish things. It can help motivate you. Too much stress can lead to those overwhelming feelings. And overwhelming feelings can be really difficult to admit or to talk about. And that's for all people, young and old. Well, in fact, in this, you can answer, you can either unmute yourself or you can put it in the chat if you'd like. You don't have to. But here's a question. What makes it difficult to talk about mental health sometimes or to ask for help? Anyone want to answer? Yeah, LaPortia?
Fear of whoever you're talking to not understanding what you're going through. I know that's a big one for me.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Fear of being judged. Yeah. Not knowing the person well. Thank you. You can, if you raised your hand, you can just unmute or put it in the chat. Them answering before fully understanding. Yeah, that happens sometimes. All right, these are great. Thank you. And there's not one right or wrong answer. Stigma is a big piece of that. Stigma is a mark or shame, a mark of shame associated with a particular circumstance, quality, or person. Feeling like, well, if I say something, people are going to think differently of me, or I'm going to feel judged, or 80% of people with depression don't seek treatment because of stigma. They're worried about that. These are the kids that you see on the screen here, not knowing who to go to. Thank you, Nathaniel. That's a huge one, right? If you don't know who to go to, why speak up? So learning who could be a trusted adult in your life is really important, and trying to think about that before you get to the point of maybe needing to talk to someone. That's important. So these two kids on the screen are in our classroom programs. They talk and share in our classroom programs. So Jasmine on the left is saying, stigma for me looked like what goes on in this house stays in this house. And it looked like that for a lot of my friends too. And Max says, if I need help, I'll be disrespected or disgraced. I should just be happy. Now, these comments here were taken from real teens. My coworker and I did interviews of teens when we were interviewing them to be part of our videos. And we asked them specifically, word for word, like, what made you not reach out for help? And this is the things we got. So I think this is really important to read, because I think a lot of you already mentioned this, and you may connect well with some of these comments. I feel like a burden. I don't want to disappoint anyone. It's hard to recognize if there's a problem. I'm ashamed and embarrassed. There's no hope, so I might as well not get help. My problems aren't as bad as other people's problems. I should be able to handle this on my own. I don't deserve help or support. People have already told me you're fine, just look at the positives. Or maybe I'm just being dramatic. So I think a lot of you may be like shaking your head thinking, yeah, I've said that to myself, or I know someone who said that to themselves. So this is what teens are telling us as to reasons that they may not reach out for help. And when we don't reach out for help, when we have overwhelming feelings, it can lead to more overwhelming feelings, more stress, shutting down. And, depression can be one of those sort of effects. So we want to make sure we're getting help. Depression is the #1 risk factor for suicide. The at-risk populations are female and those who identify as LGBTQ+. We looked at those graphs before. Depression is the most common mental health disorder that's accompanied by other co-occurring disorders. 3 out of 4 teens with depression have also been diagnosed with anxiety, and half have been diagnosed with behavioral problems. 50% of mental health disorders begin before the age of 14, and 75% begin before the age of 24. So the earlier the better when it comes to trying to help people learn who their trusted adults are, teaching them to reach out for help, learning the signs and symptoms, etc. Childhood depression is more likely to persist into adulthood if gone untreated. And about up to 20% of young people will experience what's called a major depressive episode. That's just sort of the technical term, before age 20. So that's 1 in 5. 1 in 5 will experience depression before adulthood, and 50% of those before the age of 14. So what are the signs and symptoms of depression? So these are from what we call the DSM-5, which is a book that, not a book, a diagnostic, what doctors and therapists and psychiatrists use to diagnose. So these are what you will see everywhere. And doctors or a therapist will diagnose when an individual must be experiencing 5 or more symptoms during the same 2-week period. And at least one of the symptoms should be either a depressed mood and or a loss of interest or pleasure. But some of the symptoms are that depressed mood, sadness, irritability for 2 weeks or more, loss of interest or pleasure in activities for 2 weeks or more, change in weight or appetite, fatigue or loss of energy, feelings of worthlessness or guilt, trouble concentrating or making decisions, thoughts of death or acts of self-harm. In teens, it's sometimes a little different. It sometimes comes out a little different. You might see irritability, right? Teens can be irritable, which a lot of teens are, right? And or different, or having a self-defeating attitude. I can't do this. Why try? Bizarre sleep patterns, sleeping not enough, sleeping all the time, spending more time in bed, isolating, substance use, so using drugs or alcohol, risk taking, doing things that maybe are out of the norm for that person, aggression, acting out, problems in school, not finishing homework. When something is not normal for that person's personality, that's when there should be like a little red flag that says, I wonder what's going on, right? There are some kids that just are aggressive teens or irritable teens. Does that mean they have depression? No. But if something is looking out of the ordinary, that just may be a sign that we want to check in with that person or see what's going on. Now, depression itself is different than sadness. It's different. It's much more than sadness. Sadness is often connected to a specific cause, like a disappointment, a setback, you didn't make the team, you got a bad grade, could be a death in the family. It's temporary typically. If it lasts more than 2 weeks and is accompanied by other warning signs, it can cause impairment and turn into depression over time. Sadness, the symptoms typically pass after using some coping strategies. Depression doesn't always have a direct cause. It can be triggered by a situation, early experience, and trauma, and often affects overall well-being and quality of life, not just the emotional state. It's a diagnosable mood disorder, so it has to be diagnosed by a doctor or a therapist that has specific signs and symptoms that last every day for 2 weeks or longer, and the symptoms may intensify without treatment. So this, we just like to show you that because the word depression is thrown around a lot nowadays, and people will be like, oh, I'm so depressed. And, the problem with using that word with not in the right context is those that really have depression and have been diagnosed with it, it almost takes away the credibility. So we want to make sure we're using the right language. This is Lindsay, and she is one of the teens that we interviewed. She's from Illinois, and she talks about what depression was like for her when she was younger. So I want to share this with you. And she's not an actress or anything like that.
I'm Lindsay. I live in Addison, Illinois. When you're a first-generation student like me, living with immigrant parents, mental health is a hard topic to discuss. In Vietnam, it's hard to talk about your mental health because there's someone with worse problems than you. I think that my depression impacted my family. They didn't understand that not cleaning my room didn't mean that I was lazy, and not brushing my hair, not showering was because I had depression. They thought it was because I just didn't want to do those things. It actually started when I was 6 years old, and it was something that I didn't have an understanding of. I described it as little tornadoes in my head because it became this repetitive pattern that I didn't want to happen, but it was something that I could not control. I would not get up in the morning, I would not shower, I would not brush my teeth, and it got into my eating habits, my sleeping habits, and it scared me. I didn't ask for help when I was younger. I didn't know how to access the resources within my school. People didn't talk about having depression when you're 6 years old.
Some of the risk factors of depression, so some of the things that make it a higher risk of turning into or having, being diagnosed with depression is a personal or family history, major life changes, right? Trauma, that stress, too much stress, certain physical illnesses and medications. Okay, so we're going to do a quick myth or fact. There's a couple questions here. So again, you can just put in the chat or just unmute yourself and say it out loud. It's easy to tell when an adolescent is depressed because they just cry all the time. Myth, 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 myth. Thanks for participating, guys. Myth. Yes, it's a myth. The fact is that adolescents with depression may have various symptoms. They may cry, they may seem irritable or anxious, they may have no energy and feel tired, have trouble sleeping, or sleep too much, but they may not. You know, it's different for every teen. So that's what I'm always saying. If they're acting differently than their normal persona, normal personality, then it's time to sort of check in with them. Teens are just moody. Depression and self-destructive behavior is rare. Myth or fact? Myth, 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 myth. That's a myth. The fact is that both forms of behavior are unfortunately common in adolescence. Thank you for participating. So what about treatment? What can we do about it? Treatment is effective, yet it is hard to get. In 2021, so a few years ago, an estimated 41%, so less than half, of adolescents with depression received treatment in the past year. Stigma plays a role. Other barriers play a role. Could be not knowing where to find a therapist, not having a lot of therapists, especially for aimed at kids in your community. It could be cost, not being covered by insurance. Your family doesn't believe in it, right? It could be a lot of things. A lot of teens get therapy or group work or treatment at school. So that's really important as well. Schools and parents, SADD and SADD clubs and SADD in general is helping to create protective relationships between students and help them grow into adulthood. So let's talk a little about like what we can do as a peer, as a friend. What is a trusted peer? A trusted peer is someone who's a good listener, someone who's trustworthy and dependable and won't make you feel silly for coming to them, someone you feel a connection with. The role of a trusted peer is to listen non-judgmentally and help a person get the support they need, right? The role of a trusted peer is not a doctor. The role of a trusted peer is not a therapist. But it's really to listen non-judgmentally, to be a shoulder to cry on maybe, and to help the person get the support that they need. So all of us can be trusted peers in our life, right? We can all make sure that we are a friend to those who want to come to us to talk about their bad day or their bad month or their bad year, and be a good listener and maybe encourage them to get help and encourage them and help them find someone, help them, like in the video with Sasha and Andre, walk them to the counselor's office. So we talked a little before about stigma, and I want to make sure we're coming away from this talk with what can we do to help break it down, right? We know stigma exists. It gets in the way of reaching out for help. What can we do? We can educate ourselves like we talked about, right? You're here today. We can educate others though. So when it comes to SADD, and if you're part of a club, which I assume most of you are, taking that Erika's Lighthouse course on the My Portal is really helpful at your whole SADD club. But then maybe bringing it outside of that, like, could you educate the others in your school? Could you educate your family on this, your friends? Are there ways to make sure to prioritize good mental health? Talk about it. The more we talk about it, the less stigma that exists. I will tell you, as someone who was some of your ages, the teens in this group, you know, many years ago, there was a much bigger stigma then that exists now. So it's better. We're talking about it more, but keep doing that. Keep advocating for good mental health practices at your school, for making sure kids are learning about it, making sure your SADD group is learning about it. Promote positivity, and then remind others that they're not alone, that there's always help available. Right? Saying things, we can all help to get rid of stigma. So I like these sort of comments, or they look like little stickers you can make. Hey, can I help? I love you no matter what. I'm here to listen, or you are not alone in this. 66% of young people first report suicidal thoughts to a friend. Friends are on the front lines of treatment every day. So sometimes our friends, someone's friends know more than their parents or other family members. So we want to make sure that the friends are knowing their responsibility when it comes to someone's health and life, and making sure that if comments about suicide, self-harm, anything about death, anything like that is brought up by a friend, that that person, if it's told to you, that you go to a trusted adult to talk to them, because that's not something you want to hold inside or keep a secret. It's important to have conversations with students about what they can and cannot do for their friends' mental health. So what do you do if you're worried about a friend? Being a trusted peer by listening, showing you care, and helping them find help. So below that are three bullet points of like conversation starters. And it's always important to use the word I, right? To sort of say like what you've noticed. I've noticed changes in you, or I've noticed you've been really tired every day, or I've noticed you've been coming late to school, or you haven't been coming to soccer practice, whatever it is. I've noticed changes in you. I care about you. We're great friends. I love you. What's going on? And how can I help you? And sometimes put yourself in their shoes and think about what you might like to hear. So how to have supportive conversations with your friends is always important to listen more and talk less. I think one of the comments before is you don't know if someone's going to give an answer before you're done talking. So it's important to really just listen non-judgmentally, make eye contact with them, reassure your friend, but don't make promises or keep secrets. That's really important. Ask direct questions and use empathy, that putting yourself in someone else's shoes. So this is coming from one of our activities here. And in the left side, it says what a peer might say or do. In the middle column, what's an unhelpful response, and then what's a positive response. So if someone's saying, I'm not feeling like myself lately, well, something not helpful would be like, well, things could be worse. But something helpful could be, I care about you. What do you think is causing you to feel that way? Or I know we don't talk much, but I'm having a tough time. Yeah, me too. I'm stressed out. That sort of cuts the conversation off. Instead, saying something like, I'm so sorry you're going through a hard time. It sounds really hard. Or what's going on? Or a friend confides in you that they've had suicidal thoughts recently. You saying, I promise I won't say anything to anyone, is not helpful. In fact, very dangerous. Instead, saying, let's go talk to whomever together. I'll go with you. I'm really glad you told me. So let's take a couple of these. What about the top one? And you can type in the chat, what do you think a helpful response is? If someone says, what's the point? Nothing's going to change. Instead of saying, you have so much to live for. What is something helpful that you could say to a peer that tells you that, to a friend that tells you that? Don't say that things can always get better. I like that. Why do you feel that way? I know it may feel like that right now, but in my experience, things get better with time. Yep. All right. Thank you. What about, I should be able to handle this on my own. What's a good response, a helpful, healthy, kind response to that? To, I should be able to handle this on my own. Don't bottle up your emotions. I'm always here to help. We weren't created to handle things on our own. I'm here for you. I like that, Carol. Let's go talk to trusted adult. Maybe they could help us come up with a different solution. We can go together. Sometimes it's like less overwhelming, right? When a friend is like, let's go together. We can do this. It's not so scary. Thanks, LaPortia. Don't put it on yourself. Remember, we're here for you. I love that. Great. One thing I wanted, so we're almost pretty much done with like most of the talk today, but I wanted to show you a resource from Erika's Lighthouse that some of you might find helpful and is available to all of you. It's called our Teen Toolbox, and it's sort of like a website within our website for teens or really anyone to go on, and you can sort of self-navigate your way through the website to learn about different mental health issues, to learn about how to communicate, learn about other coexisting disorders like stress and anxiety. I think I can go on here. So this is what it looks like. I'm going to put in my first name here. Can you all see what I'm doing here? Yeah, okay. So it says, hey, Alana, let's find out why you're here. And I want to feel better, get help, help a friend, learn about mental health, have good mental health. So let's say I want to learn about mental health. I want to learn about mental health because sometimes people feel like nothing matters, overwhelmed, so tired, like self-harming, worthless, unattractive. Let's say overwhelmed. And most of these, it takes you to the same spot. So it doesn't really matter so much what you pick before, but what you're ready to learn. So if I click about mental health, these are the things that I can learn about: stress, anxiety. Sorry if you're here, we're having a hailstorm at the moment. I apologize if it gets loud. Stress, anxiety, depression, self-harm, suicidal thoughts, body image, co-occurring, and other illnesses. So let's say I want to learn about anxiety. It comes to a page here where there's a short video, a vetted video that we found. And then it talks about the definition, what's important to know, some of the symptoms or what you might experience, treatment, how to feel better, and then some vetted resources. So this is really great for your clubs to sort of navigate through, or for just you on your own. Let's say body image. Again, different information on what it is, what's important to know, different symptoms, how to feel better. If I want to go back to the toolbox menu and I want to say, I want to learn about how to talk to my friends, how to talk to a friend, I get information on how to talk to a friend with different resources as well. So this is all available to you if you go to the Erika's Lighthouse website. And lastly, we just want to remind you that you're not responsible for other people's actions. And that's really important to know, because we can all be the best trusted peer or trusted adult out there and do everything that is supposed to be done. And we can't really control other people's reactions and actions. So you need to make sure you're taking care of yourself, and you need to make sure that sort of you know where the line is when it comes to not getting sometimes overly involved and not being a therapist, not affecting your own mental health to help someone else. So thank you very much. I hope that you all learned a lot and that you will take this back with you and share with others. We have a lot of great resources at Erika's Lighthouse. One of the things your clubs can do that we would love is for your SADD club to become an affiliate club of Erika's Lighthouse. We give you access to like 50 different mental health activities if your club wants to prioritize good mental health. So feel free to reach out, or to reach out to someone at SADD. They know about us as well. So thank you so much. Any questions or anything? Where do we access it? I'm going to put the website for Erika's Lighthouse here. Well, thank you so much. Go enjoy your evening. Like I said, we are getting a really bad hail and thunderstorm, weirdly. So I hope everyone else stays safe. And I hope if you haven't had your spring break, I hope you have a good spring break and a good rest of your school year.
Okay, I have two questions, I believe. And so we talked a lot about recognizing the signs of mental health concerns, and typically we see that in our day-to-day interactions. But I was hoping you can shed some light on how we can recognize that maybe when we're behind the wheel, as you know, you're in your head a lot, especially when you're driving. So I was hoping you could shed some light for addressing those issues while on the road.
I think they manifest themselves with, I mean, I think sometimes when someone's holding emotions in, it can come out maybe with, if this is what you're looking for, like more aggressive decision making, aggressive driving, or not, or being in your head and sort of not paying attention to the road also, because you're thinking about other things, or you're worried about, sometimes those phones, I mean, those phones are a distraction, but if you're worried about what is going on in the phone or in a conversation, being distracted by that because you're worried about what someone's saying. So I think if someone is feeling like they're a little off, that may be a time to make sure they're in a good headspace before they get behind a wheel, would be my thoughts.
Awesome, thank you. And then my second question was, our college youth are experiencing pressures like no other generation before. Given everything that we talked about, do you have any specific guidance for college students, especially given that they tend to be more of our vulnerable population on the roadways and they're driving at more non-traditional hours, given their study schedules, extracurriculars, driving late at night, and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, we don't so much address the college age group. I mean, I think the same thing goes for it is, making sure they're having good mental health behaviors, making sure that they are the basic things like getting enough sleep, eating healthy, exercising, surrounding yourself with good, positive people. Like that all still matters when you're 5 years old in college or an adult. And those things will help then with driving at odd hours or taking your exams and extracurriculars, et cetera. Like, I think, and so if you're feeling over, like stressed that you can't handle or anxious, like that's when we go to talk to someone, whether it's a friend or whether it's a counseling center at a college. A lot of colleges have great health centers and counseling centers where that's sort of free access and you have the ability to access those. So just making sure you're trying to do the best to take care of yourself.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That
Yeah.
brings us to the end of today's session. Thank you all for being a part of this conversation. Mental health is something that we all have, and recognizing the signs when someone may need support is a powerful way to create a safer and more compassionate community. A huge thank you to Alana Sherman for sharing her expertise and insights with us today. And if you have any more questions and want to dive in deeper with these topics, don't hesitate to reach out. The session and part 1 of this series will be available on MySADD shortly. And as part of our, it's a part of our